Good morning. All you church people on the back row. It's good to have you here. We'd like to call the meeting to order, the Post-Secondary Technical Education Authority, March 30th, 2023. And again, welcome to all the TA members. Good to see everyone, staff, friends, no foes, I hope. So we're all good here. So first thing I would like to ask if there are any changes or additions to the agenda. Hopefully you've had a chance to review the agenda that we have for today. No changes, additions? Okay, we'll move on to the minutes from February 23rd. Are there any changes to the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I would move we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, a second.
Okay, Eddie, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion passed. Any introductions today? TEA or, from our folks in the room, no introductions? Yes.
Sure, I'd just like to introduce the new president of Cali Community College, Michelle Shin.
Good. Congratulations. I think. Anyone else? Any other introductions? All right, we'll move on. Chair's report. I must tell you that just some circumstances that have kept me at home and certainly not doing any traveling right now, but I feel that that's moving in the right direction. So I have very little to report. So we'll move on to the members. Any TA members have report on their activities? Eddie?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I appreciate this opportunity. Today is construction day in Old Dodge City at the community college. This is where they invite a lot of young people in. They show them the construction programs that we have in Dodge. And that is kind of a neat day, especially when you're there to enjoy it like we all do. Dodge City Community College also attended and exhibited at the 3i Show, which is something out there that we know a little bit about. Anyway, Clayton had a nice group there, but we also had, Workforce One there, because as you know also, because I've mentioned it before, we have Hillmar Cheese coming to Dodge City. Just the outside parts of the building are down right now, Mr. Chair. So that's how far away it's going to be. But a lot of concerns about that. The Kansas Works was there with their new van, 34-foot long, and it has to have quote unquote outside because it is all satellite operated. So, but we were glad that they were there and it gave opportunities for people to talk. I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes, but April 4th, I think we all got invited to come to Goodland, and that, and Mr. Chair, I'm going to make every effort to be there because there's other things that we need. That's not one of my schools, but I just think it's important because I've got a couple other matters there. Senator Moran's supposed to be there too, and kind of just between us folks here, we've got to start talking about highway improvement in Southwest Kansas. And we're right. That's just going to be critical. When you think about 9 to 12 additional dairies being built out there and all the truck drivers it's going to take to haul milk to make cheese, we got to think about this now, not tomorrow, not the next day, right now. So we're in the middle of that too. And big plans for Garden City Community College's rodeo program. We'll be talking more about that later on. The crew out there They're just terrific, Mr. Chair. Ryan and his group are just really great to work with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eddie. Anyone else? Yeah, Dave?
I had the opportunity to visit two technical campuses of Highland. They're not in Highland, but the one in Atchison is about 25 miles south of Highland, and the former Northeast Kansas Technical College. I hadn't been there in 4 years, and I went down and was impressed. There were two facilities that were in the planning stages when I was president. One was a diesel facility, and one was electrical addition to that program. And their enrollment is at an all-time high. The diesel shop is finished, 16,000 square feet, and many of the lawyers coming in to hire the students are telling the students, you're gonna have to step down when you come into our shop because it's not this nice. The electrical program, a few years ago went to a 2-year program, which was really a good thing. Yeah, but we didn't have the space up there, so they added an electrical addition. So I was able to visit that for the first time, and they have an all-time high enrollment of 54 students in that program. So overall, they're doing very well. They're planning an upgrade of their welding facility, and that's going well. The second campus is at Baileyville, their Western Center, which is not entirely, but almost about 98% high school students, and taking advantage of that former SB 155 bill. And things are going well there. They're having all-time high enrollment. And there are 11 high schools that feed in students to that facility. So talked to one principal that sends his students to Atchison, and he said, our high school hallways are a ghost town in the afternoon. And over half our students are going to Atchison to take technical programs. That was a little small way at 1A high school, but they're taking advantage of that. So thank you.
That had to be exciting to take a visit back to that. Did you bring in wine? I forgot to ask you. Yeah, what do you? Okay. All right, you're on record of that in May. All right. Yeah, okay. Anyone else?
Actually, yes, please.
Okay, Natalie?
So I had the opportunity to visit the Future Ready Center in Wichita. If you haven't gotten a chance, it's a partnership between WSU Tech and USD 259, looking at manufacturing, automation, and business and industry and new technical skills. It was a great day. We also got to visit Integra with Kelly Billfield, who will be the new superintendent of 259 and WSU Tech. Lots of exciting things going on, thinking about what we can do in high school. Yesterday, I got to go to Cali County, and I'd like to talk a little bit about their model. I was invited there by Arc City. Michael is their CTE director and Dr. Ballard, the superintendent, but they had Health and Human Services Day yesterday. I visited with counselors and teachers from Augusta, Winfield, Arc City, Wellington, and several districts actually from Oklahoma. And it was a positive day. I think it's a great model to think about. It's something they do every year on Monday. They'll have a joint day every year. Arc City and Winfield high schools set aside professional development for their teachers. What I think is unique about that is that they have their teachers, it's a staff day. So general educators, counselors, and CTE instructors are there. They will be updated on the program so they know about the labor market and the programs that are important in that area. And they'll also talk about the Kansas General Ed Core that will start in fall of 2024 to make sure their educators are up to date. So shout out to that. I think it's a great model that perhaps it's going. So
It's exciting.
it is.
I look forward to touring that facility and they get it all done. So, okay, anyone else? If not, we're going to move on our agenda. Vice President Smathers.
Okay.
Report on workforce development activities.
Thank you, Chair Frederick, and good morning to everybody. This past month, I attended both the 10-year Excel in CTE celebration at WSU Tech and also visited with Allen Community College. I know Allen has a lot that's going on there that they're looking into, and I really appreciated the time and attending both. I enjoyed both of these events. I did want to congratulate Cloud Community College. I think they did a groundbreaking yesterday. I don't mean to be cutting into Carter's report here if I am, but Cloud did a groundbreaking yesterday and for their new facility. We've been working, staff has been working on a lot of healthcare concepts and issues and ideas. As you appreciate, healthcare, like pretty much any industry in the state right now, is struggling for people. And so we're trying to figure out how maybe we can do a few things to help there. We've also been busy with multiple legislative items, and Matt Casey will be in a little later to talk to you all about those. I, for one, will be very glad when the session is done. So I will say that. I wanted to let you all know that both Carl Perkins and Adult Ed received additional funds this year, which is good. By the time you spread it out among all the institutions, it isn't necessarily that much per institution, but every little bit helps. So we were glad that that's occurred. This is also a time of year where staff is on the road quite a bit, both within the state visiting colleges, but also attending national events. So we will be out quite a bit over the next month or two. A lot of people will be traveling. We'll get back to everybody as fast as we can. But if you do send us something, as I say, we'll try to get back to you as fast as we can, but it might be slightly slower than before. But you should at least get a message saying we got it and we're working on it. And then lastly, I wanted to give the TEA members a heads up. This is one of your favorite times of year where you are asked by the Secretary of State to divulge your statement of substantial interests. You'll be receiving this request from Becky Potterbaum from our office, probably in the next week or so, and you will need to submit it back to the state within the month of April. So this is a state requirement. We have no say over it at all. But I wanted to at least give you a heads up to expect the email, and it is not a junk email. It is something that we do have to do. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Any questions, Scott? Comments? All right, we'll move on. Report from the community colleges. Carter File, welcome. Good to see you again. Your report was almost given by Eddie and Scott, just so you know.
Thank you, Chair Frederick. Well, they missed a couple of things, but I'm going to cover them again. This one's a little briefer. We had 4 colleges that reported. Hopefully you all got the report and have had an opportunity to read it, but I'd still like to cover it. This cycle, we're covering Building a Future, the business section. Independence Community College, they have a Fab Lab at ICC, and they host the monthly meetings for the Innovation Business Resource Center, which I'll refer to as IBRC from here on out. It has about 20 loan active in all over the county. ICC has partnered with the Independence USD 446 Kids Crew after-school program to host elementary age students at the Fab Lab ICC to inspire entrepreneurship, life skills, and innovative approaches to problem solving and career choices. Greenbridge Educational Cooperative leases office within the Fab Lab ICC and hosts classes and programs for a variety of ages, elementary through high school for STEM, Lego, life skills, entrepreneurship, and college prep. ICC through the Fab Lab ICC offers a growth accelerator program by leasing office space per the EDA grant requirements regarding entrepreneurship and small business startup. 44 surrounding area businesses have been served with the startup resources, mentoring, collaboration, classes, and funding opportunities since about 2015. Montgomery County YEC bridges gaps between the high school, college, and workforce is the heading. The 7th annual Montgomery County Youth Entrepreneur Challenge hosted by Fab Lab ICC at Independence Community College. It's a little confusing, but it's a separate unit inside of Independence Community College. Boasted 26 registered contestants from 3 counties, including 6th through 12th graders from area public and private schools. Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge showcases students created and student-owned businesses of every kind. In the past editions of the competition, winning businesses have been lawn care, catering, t-shirt printing. This year's first prize of $1,000 was awarded to Sweet Salvation, owned by Amelia Rodriguez of Cherryville High School. Second prize of $750 was awarded to Crown Distillers, owned by Alex Sherman and Stetson Schaefer of Cherryville High School. Third prize of $500 was awarded to Super Yard Bros Creations, owned by Tyson Pierce of Neodesha Middle School. The event winner, Ms. Rodriguez, has secured a berth at the Kansas Entrepreneurship Challenge scheduled for April the 20th, 2023. There in your report, there's a number of graphics which are hard to report on, but I'll let you read those. I just want to hit a few highlights. These are about graduate employment data. The first one comes from the KTIP program performance information with a SAP program. 90% of the graduates were exited were employed. In 2021, 63.6 of ICC certificate graduates were employed in the state of Kansas during their first year out of college or their entry year. So the number of certificate graduates rises to 75% 3 years after graduation, and the number of certificates stands at 100% 5 years after graduation. So these are outstanding opportunities or outstanding employment numbers for graduates of the certificate programs at ICC. They comment that this data shows ICC certificate graduates are successful at finding and maintaining employment in the state of Kansas. They also applied for an NSF grant. They submitted a $220,000 proposal for a National Science Foundation Advanced Technical Education grant that was prepared through the NSF Mentoring Connection Program. As the name implies, Mentoring Connection provides participant colleges with a consultant or mentor to help prepare an ATE grant proposal. Through the proposal is still under review, and they don't know if they'll receive it. ICC has found the process to be incredibly helpful in preparing competitive proposals. Under the Excel and CTE heading, Independence Community College serves eight schools in their service area. 39% of the AY 2022 student body at ICC was comprised of high school students. ICC continues to seek out ways to serve area high schools with additional courses and faculty assignments. 3 ICC faculty regularly teach at service area schools to meet enrollment demand. Labette Community College Health Science programs, their nursing, respiratory care, radiology, sonography, and physical therapy assistant indicated that 89% of their program graduates passed their national exams. Of the 89 who passed, 98% are employed within the field that they studied for. Welding graduates are employed at 85% rate. In addition, LCC grads total indicated an employment rate of 96% within the student's intended field. As recognized in the KBOR Building a Future Strategic Planning through the Advantage Kansas Committee of the Governor's Council on Education, LCC administration and faculty continue to partner with their Southeast Kansas BNI labor leaders to develop and redevelop curriculum in support of their needs. For example, several companies in Labette County and Southeast Kansas support their graphic design program as advisors and or hire LCC graduates, which include Dwayne's Photo, Sun Graphics, Flesh Company, Wright Signs and Graphics, Parsons Chamber of Commerce, City of Parsons, Commercial Bank, Par Forms Printing, Tank Connection, McCarthy, Miller's Professional Imaging, Names and Numbers, and the Morning Sun. So a great collection of employers who are hiring LCC grads. In the Excel and CTE area, Labette County is heavily involved in concurrent enrollment in Labette and Cherokee counties. There are 8 high schools within their service area to which they cater. Enrollment remains strong. They work to continue to develop new courses which can be made available for concurrent enrollment. Concurrent credit hours, tiered and non-tiered, represents about 25% of Labette's annual enrollment. So again, the theme is that people are continuing to work to offer concurrent education at high schools. The nursing initiative, LCC nursing program is extremely appreciative of the K&I grant that they've received to promote faculty development, student success, and aid in the purchase of supplies and equipment. Faculty development funds have helped the college to defray the first-year costs for hiring new faculty. Additionally, faculty development funds have been used to assist nursing faculty members revise the curriculum to reflect the next generation NCLEX national exam for program graduates and to achieve high standards set by national accreditation. The K&I grant funds have provided both simulators and simulation equipment, which have been helpful transitioning students from the classroom role to nurse practice role as they graduate. Pratt Community College partners with Attica, Harper, Chaparral, and Medicine Lodge High Schools and offers automotive and welding programs, providing local access. These classes are Excel and CTE courses, so are free to students. Both of these programs are also offered at Kingman High School, and enrollment continues to grow in both locations. PCC recently purchased a steel business facility that was for sale at the Pratt Industrial Park and moved their welding program to this site. The building provides much needed space and equipment to grow the welding program. In addition, there's demand for steel cells from the previous business, and PCC maintains this part of the business providing students the learning environment to, in quotes, run a business as part of the curriculum. An open house was recently held at this facility and was well attended by TEA representatives. So thank you to all of you. Legislators, county government officials, and general public of Pratt. Pratt's electrical power technology program has enrolled over 120 students throughout the state. This includes their partnership with Coffeyville Community College, Wichita State University Tech, Dodge City Community College, in addition to the enrollment at Pratt Community College's campus. The students that complete a one-year certificate with PCC often are hired by a company that they intern with, and the salaries are around $70,000 a year and up. They offer the second year of the program online and encourage students to complete their associate's degree in this manner. Again, this is a great example of collaboration with other community colleges to offer these extremely important and in-demand career choices for students. Finally, PCC partners with Barton County Community College to offer registered nursing program and that will start in August of 2023. The practical nursing program on Pratt Community College will also start in 2023. As part of the arrangement, Barton uses PCC's existing nursing classrooms, skills labs, simulators, and area clinical sites. The partnership enables quality workers to be trained to help meet the healthcare needs in South Central Kansas and support the statewide nursing initiative. All of the programs listed above lead to good paying jobs in high demand fields and offer sustainable wages. And finally, Seward County Community College, their truck driving school, they hope to break ground on a new truck driving school by June. They're currently graduating 56 students a year. With the expansion, they will be able to graduate 185 students a year. They hope to. Seward County Community College has revamped its program, and this is in the ag area, and are expanding course opportunities in the area. They are also training students in grain elevator operations and production of biodiesel. This is exciting time for the agricultural department at Seward County Community College. And finally, they have a student health initiative. They're in the planning process to remodel an unused area of the campus to create a student health center. This would allow access to student health care for their own students free of charge. And any community college president can tell you that offering healthcare to students is a challenge at best. So with that, I would thank you for giving me a few minutes, and I'd stand for questions.
Any questions, comments, Carter? Thank you. Good information. Good report.
Thank you. Thank you, Ray.
Okay, we'll move on. Report on the technical college, and welcome to Greg Nichols, president of Salina Tech, standing in for Jim. So good to see you and welcome.
Well, thank you. I know he has better hair than I do, so, but I think my knees are maybe better off than his right now. But I'm very, very fortunate to sit here and talk with you about the technical colleges and what we've been doing in the state. Excited that the 2-year sector is growing, with reaching out to the community, seeking to meet those needs for our community. I want to elaborate a little bit on that with each of the colleges. So I'll begin with Flint Hills Tech. They've recognized the Fanasteel Meats owner, Dan and Jan Smoots, with a dinner at Clover Cliff Ranch to celebrate the business expansion and acknowledgement of their being named the Small Business Administration Small Business Persons of the Year. So that's a wonderful acknowledgement for them. Another acknowledgement, congratulations, or I'm sorry, to Dr. Karen Doughty. She accepted an appointment to the Higher Learning Commission Institutional Action Council. So she gets to make those tough decisions, or maybe sometimes easy decisions for institutions for a 4-year term. It's beginning in September of 2023. So Flint Hills and the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks have entered into a partnership to support local fisheries. This includes water testing and developing access to the fisheries. So Flint Hills also hosted legislative dialogues in partnership with Emporia Area Chamber of Commerce, providing a space for the community members to discuss legislative items with the regional senators and representatives. Flint Hills is also excited to serve as a public partner and prepare workforce training for Kansas Semiconductor Manufacturing Consortium, which represents several public and private organizations in this venture to bring the semiconductor manufacturing to Coffee County and develop the greater East Central Kansas region. So we're excited about that new opportunity there. Wichita State University Tech has increased 15% their enrollment in the spring. 5,173 students enrolled on the 20th day. That marks the largest year-over-year increase for WSU Tech in more than 10 years. So technical education is definitely on the move. In February, on the 27th, they held their 10-year anniversary, celebrating for Excel in CTE to celebrate the student success in the program. They thank the governor and the elected state legislators and KBOR, and of course the TEA, for supporting that initiative. In February, they announced the Integra program that will expand Wichita, which will include training in semiconductor chip manufacturing from WSU Tech for up to 2,000 employees over the next couple of years. That's a tremendous increase across the state, but certainly in that local region. Additionally, JTM Foods, which is building a new production facility, is the top producer of handheld pies and has become a partner with WSU Tech to create JTM University. They'll be working with and in collaboration with them to train technicians level 1 through 6 to do their onboarding and orientation. That's up to 200 people employed or trained in the next few months, or 24 months. Over in Manhattan, they've partnered with Kansas Works. They held a career fair, a 3-day career fair from March 21st to 23rd on their campus. The event was open to anyone. Dozens of area employers participated. On the 21st, the emphasis was healthcare. On the 22nd, the emphasis was the traditional trades, construction, HVAC, welding, electrical, and electrical power and distribution. There's a slightly different there. And on the 23rd, their emphasis was on automotive technology, industrial engineering, IT, and business. They also held events at Wamego High School and the Flint Hills Christian School in March. The community of Manhattan, the Chamber of Commerce, has sponsored MATC, their National CTE Signing Day, which is on April 20th. So a lot of the schools are participating in that National Signing Day. It's a great event that's been around for quite a few years. Kind of started right here in Kansas, so we're proud of that. Jim wanted me to update you on their pilot project with college algebra. So they have 2 area high schools they're working with on tuition-free, fee-free college algebra. been pretty successful. They've had 24 students participating, and the schools have adopted the college structure with required lab time for any student that is earning less than a B in the course. So that remediation along with college algebra is an important part. Also, he wanted to mention that there are 40 refugees from Afghanistan that are enrolled in the ESL program at MATC. So not only are we serving our local communities, but those that come in internationally. So at Washburn Tech, I want to shift gears there a little bit. Congratulations again to Dr. Julianne Mazachek. She was selected the 15th president of Washburn University. Most of us probably know her well. She spent over 30 years at the university in various roles, but we want to extend the congratulations to her for that position. Washburn Tech is also, they're in preliminary proposal for enhancing Northeast Kansas manufacturing ecosystems through a National Science Foundation grant. A team of 3 from Washburn Tech will work alongside NSF staff to develop the full proposal for capacity building efforts. So that's a pretty lucrative grant cycle or grant program the National Science Foundation offers. Washburn Tech also held the career fair February 22nd through 23rd. They had more than 81. I don't know exactly how many more than 81, but business partners attend from different industries, including the health professions. Washburn Tech also will be holding the National Signing Day on April 20th with their letter of intent signing. Washburn Tech founded the National Technical Letter of Intent Signing Day in 2014. Today, 65 colleges across the country participate in that program, and very many of them here in Kansas. Washburn Tech Business and Industry Center launched the Public Safety Institute. It is an institute that provides training on critical needs required for the current police officers and small departments across Kansas. Over in Salina, we've had our largest enrollment growth that has led to some need for additional construction. So we added a student center onto our building, including a bookstore and a small market so students could grab, lunch or whatever. But the area that we used to have was a smaller area. We've converted that into office spaces because with more students, you need more staff to support those students. So we're kind of rearranging and the dust is settling. They're starting to paint. That's a good thing. So the construction, HVAC, electrical students are actually doing the project. They're working on the building for us. Of course, we've got the full permits and everything. We want to make sure that's done correctly. And they're doing a great job. It's not as fast as when you go out and do the professionals. They're training, right? So it's okay. My student services people want the business services out, so they're pushing it really hard. So we're going to move them in hopefully by the end of May. We want to express great appreciation for the collaboration of student services groups in Kansas. We were able to meet with Barton Community College and Bethany College and share successes and maybe some struggles in student services. So we appreciate those institutions for helping us and collaborating with us to help us improve our services for students. It's one of those examples of, the things that don't always come to the forefront where we do work together. We held a career fair as well. We had over 70 employers on campus recruiting in a variety of programs, all of our programs. So it seemed to be the season for the students to get those job offers. Most of our students, and I think this is true in the technical programs across the state, probably already have a job waiting or are already working and finishing their school. So that's a good position to be in. We mentioned HLC a few minutes ago. So we had our own HLC visit at our Lincoln, Kansas site. So we added in a location in Lincoln with a partnership funded partly by private donations, including the Dane G. Hansen Foundation, to support Northwest Kansas. So in Lincoln, we offer 2 programs on their site. Our instructors are located there. Automotive and welding those are the two primary programs that serves a variety of schools. So Lincoln, Tesket, which is part of Twin Valley Schools, Sylvan Grove. Others are welcome to come in. That was one of the important parts of the partnership, is that we didn't just say only Lincoln High School students could attend. Now they're going to limit it during the day to high school students from those surrounding areas. But outside of that, we could offer programs to adult learners in the evenings or late afternoon. So it's one of those things, we're limited on space on campus. It's a pretty fair drive to go from Lincoln to Salina and back as a high school student. So we're trying to expand and reach and meet those needs for all of Kansas, at least within our service area. So North Central and Northwest Kansas technical colleges have awesome news, big news, and the legislature has approved their affiliation with Fort Hays State University. There's still a lot of hoops to go through, but one of the big ones is out of the way. So with that, I will stand for any questions that you might have.
Any questions, comments? Wasn't our own Clark Coco? Didn't he, was that his
That's correct.
brainchild? Took all his brains, I think he had, but.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to say it took all his brains. I know he was definitely instrumental in beginning that whole National Signing Day.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
How
one.
that has, expanded, but also if any of you that have ever attended signing day, it's almost a celebration like graduation,
It is.
It is.
It's tremendous.
It is. And the support of family members, community leaders, et cetera, et cetera. So,
I really do personally think it has kind of changed the perspective from the local school districts that the push, and there's nothing wrong with going to a university. That's a wonderful thing. That's what I did. That's what many of us did. But there's also importance in technical education, and that emphasis is really magnified through National Signing Day.
absolutely. Any questions, comments? Thank you,
I don't-
Greg.
I
Oh,
don't necessarily have a question. Nice job, Gray. Sorry late to the party. But I do my comment, as both Greg and Carter mentioned, a lot of economic development projects. And this is a compliment to our technical colleges and our community colleges. I firmly believe, and also Lieutenant Governor Tolan firmly believes, part of our secret sauce in Kansas for attracting, retaining, and growing business is our education system. I can go through a laundry list of Hillmar Cheese, Bartlett Grain, Scorpion out of Manhattan, JTM Foods was mentioned, Panasonic, Schwann's, in Salina, in the recent announcements with Integra and EMP. All of those are possible because of the great linkages to our education system and keeping our talent here in Kansas. These are high-tech jobs that we're recruiting, and our community and technical colleges are playing an important role in that talent pipeline. I just want to make that general comment. I know Greg and Carter mentioned some of those things, but you can't believe how important that is to our recruitment, retention, and growing Kansas economy.
yeah, well said. Anyone else? Thank you, Greg. Okay, we're going to move on our agenda to the consent agenda. We have 7 items from the Technical Program and Curriculum Committee on the consent agenda. Mr. Bean,
Chairman, I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
is there a second? Any comments? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? What are you wearing?
Glad you asked, Greg. I was hoping to do, I made a promise to a certain person at Fort Scott Community College that I would wear this today. But I had the opportunity a couple weeks ago to do a chamber coffee event in Pittsburgh and I had the opportunity to tour the CTE facility in Frontenac, which is a great partnership between Fort Scott Community College and the local school districts. Great programs. If you're ever in the Frontenac area, not only you want to try the fried chicken, but also take a tour of the facility. But a cool thing about this trip is the team at Fort Scott took me to the Harley Davidson facility there. And 20+ years ago, I helped create that facility with a great partnership with Harley Davidson and in the city of Frontenac and Pitt State University. And what was kind of interesting, it started out back when we launched it at Fort Scott with 5 lifts and maybe a dozen bikes and 6 or 7 engines. What I saw 20+ years later is roughly over 50 lifts, over 100 bikes and a couple hundred engines sitting there, and a great student enrollment too, and a very passionate instructors, plural. So they gave me this and I told them I'd promise I'd wear it. So I'm glad you asked, Ray.
I didn't know if he got paid to wear that or not, so.
I might have.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, that's a good story though, and what a success that is, certainly. All right, we're going to move on into other matters. First up is a report from Matt Casey, legislative update. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Always a highlight.
I don't know about that, but thank you for the compliment. That's a good inspiration for me as I give everyone a very dry briefing on the legislative process. So the Kansas legislature is winding down towards first adjournment. This week was an abbreviated week with just 3 days of work under the dome. Both the House and the Senate have now adjourned until next Monday, April 3rd, for their last week, running up to first adjournment on April 6th. After that first adjournment, they'll take 2 weeks off. They'll return on April 26th for veto session. And they'll be in for a few days, maybe a week. It's always hard to tell how long they'll be in, but veto session doesn't last very long, and then that'll be it for the year. So having said that, I wanted to update everybody on a couple bills, a couple items. President Nichols stole my thunder on one of the most exciting ones, HB 2290. The affiliation bill was passed on the Senate floor by a vote of 40-0, and will be sent to the governor's office for her consideration. So that bill has made its way through the legislative process and will be heading to the governor's office. So that's okay. It was a good heads up. Senate Bill 48, the TEA bill, we discussed this earlier in the session. This bill was discussed in the Senate Education Committee, had a hearing, had a couple of days of discussion, and didn't secure passage. Last Friday, the bill came up again when the committee discussed a bill that HB 2060, they used to put a couple other education bills together, higher education items together. And this bill came up as discussion again. The committee had a brief discussion, said that they'd like to have more discussions on this going forward, and there was no motion to put it into the bill. But it's something that could continue on through conference committee. So we'll be continuing to monitor that and keep the discussion going as that keeps working its way through the process. This time of year, things get moved around, bills get pushed into other bills, and the discussion on almost anything can come up at any time. So it's an important part of the session to keep a close eye on everything that's been going on throughout the year. So with that, I think I would stand for any questions on any items or any other thoughts that anybody else has.
Any questions of Matt on any of that? Yeah.
Matt, I probably should know this, but I call it the credential bill. Was it 20? I can't remember the number, but 2036 or whatever, but 2038, it was the one where they were going to pay for Excel and CTE students' credentials. Where did?
Oh, yes, 2138.
2138, yes, thank you.
That has worked its way through the process, and I don't have it pulled up here in front of me off the top of my head, but that one has been moving its way through. I think it went over to Senate Ed, and I think it's in that committee at the moment.
So the Senate Bill 48, is that still evolving? What's going on?
Yeah, so it's still in discussion. The committee hasn't had an interest in including that into any other bills or adopting that language into anything at the moment. But the conversation is still evolving. In fact, when they brought it up last week, there were a couple amendments that were proposed to the substitute bill to slower the transition for the members, and also for the Board of Regents appointees. It would change that from recommendations from community and tech colleges to consultation with business and industry. So there's still been some ongoing changes and conversation about that bill and how it's progressing. So like I said, it could come up again in veto session or even conference committees next week. So
Well, it's just curious that it's my understanding it's never gotten out of the committee,
no, it never got, and it never passed out of committee. That's correct.
but yet it is still somewhere, still has life.
Yeah, and that's how things can get put into other bills at this time of session. And so really anything's up in the air, anything can happen.
So what's the plan as that bill continues to surface from your perspective? I mean,
I think we continue the discussion that we had earlier about wanting a broader input from business and industry before we make any recommendations going forward about any sort of changes. So that's really where the committee was as well, when they said we want to have more input, more discussion before we are really comfortable with any changes. So that's where the committee was when the discussion came up last Friday.
okay, when's the drop dead date for this bill?
Well, so the bill died technically because it was a non-exempt bill that didn't get through turnaround. So at that point, everything stopped. But now that we're at that point of session where things get bundled and packaged, you can put language into any bill. So Senate Bill 48 wasn't live, but the language could have been adopted into Senate or House Bill 2060, which is the vehicle that they were thinking about using. So
So we often hear about making sausage. Is this?
it gets very tricky to keep track of everything at this point, because you'll have a bill that maybe was live that you're following, and then it gets into a conference committee or a committee just puts it into another bill, and that bill's kind of dead, but you don't know it because it got put into something else and that bill's moving. And yeah, you got to keep a real close eye on things this time of year.
Called good government, huh? Okay, any other questions or comments? Thank you, Matt. Appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move forward with a report from Director April Henry, discuss the Promise Act program review.
So this is the after the legislative session part, all the hard work starts. So thank you, Chair Frederick and members of the authority. During the 2022 legislative session, changes were made to the Promise Act. Lots of different changes. Some of them were affecting eligibility, the application, clawback clause. Three very important ones came up regarding the programs themselves. So that is what you guys get to decide today. The first thing that came up was in section 28. Language now states that all programs must lead to an occupation that is either high wage, high demand, or critical need. In section 29, the language now says regarding transfer programs that the program must have either an established 2+2 agreement with a Kansas 4-year public institution or an articulation agreement with a Kansas 4-year post-secondary institution that allows 60 credits to transfer. So that one goes a step further. The third is in section 30. Institutions are allowed to designate an additional field of study from the 5 listed in your issue paper. During year 1 of Promise Act, institutions were allowed a program, one single program. It is now brought into one of those fields. So any program in one of those 5 fields, high wage, high demand, critical need, transfer with a 2+2 or an articulation agreement. Clear as mud? All right. Back in section 29 of the legislation, they also stipulated a timeline that the board must follow in applying new rules to existing programs. So we have put that language in the issue paper along with our timeline. Now, we did back up the timeline a little bit and notified institutions earlier regarding the transfer programs. 2+2 agreements and articulation agreements are not something you can get done in a week. So we gave them some extra time to work on those. That's a lot to throw at you. Any questions so far? Nope. All right, so how are we going to do this? How are we going to look at programs? Staff did most of the work for you, so you're welcome. But, so how we did it, here's the logic we use. The Kansas Department of Labor defines high wage and high demand. So that was a pretty simple thing to look at. We crosswalked SIP codes, which are codes that are given to programs, to occupations. If the occupation showed up high wage, high demand, it's good to go. We don't need to discuss it. If the institution submitted an articulation agreement or a 2+2 that met what is prescribed in the law, we removed it off the list. They're good to go. They get to maintain that. Critical need is not defined. Look it up anywhere. It's not in state. There's no federal definition of it. So board staff did not attempt to define it. We are not doing that. So what Vice President Smathers did was sent out a notification saying, here are programs that don't lead to an occupation, high wage, high demand, or a 2+2 agreement. If you want to argue critical need, please bring that forward yourself and argue that. So that is where kind of we stopped our review, and where you'll see in the issue paper, there are several institutions and programs and their rationale for why they should be removed. When we were looking at this, we did notice that the certified medication aid across the entire state it didn't hit high wage or high demand. We as staff want to argue critical need. We would like to maintain that program statewide. And the reasons are, Javier, if you'll scroll down just a little bit. First, what is it? What is a medication aid? Typically, these types of employees are used in long-term care facilities, assisted living facilities, mental health facilities. They kind of substitute a little bit of some nursing activities. They are not a nurse. They are a nurse aide, but they also have to have additional training in medication. They then can deliver and track medication for patients. If any of us are on blood pressure meds, heart meds, diabetes medication, it's very important you get that at a specific time so that you're not harmed by that. So the medication aid occupation fills that role. They jump in at certain times to provide medication to patients. And then when they're done with that duty, they bounce back to a nurse aide. But they do have to have additional training to do so. So if we look at the chart, what we did is we said, okay, what's our supply and demand? And we know it's not nice to look at people as supply and demand, but what is our supply and demand? 18-19, we were on a pretty good path. We were filling the need. We all know what happened in 2020. Caused a healthcare shortage. Look what it's done in 21 and 22. We are at a critical point, not only with nurses, but as nursing facilities lean on medication aids or lean on nurses to do additional duties, this occupation is being forgotten about and patients are at risk. So that is what board staff is arguing, to maintain this as a critical need occupation for the Promise Act. With that, I'll stand for questions on the medication aid program.
Okay, any questions or comments? Deborah?
No question, just a comment that I agree.
Yeah, I think I've seen, again, I agree. I think I've seen ads in our area, they're giving signing bonuses to
Mhm.
CMAs.
Yep. To maintain this, I need a vote and a second from you. Deb.
And you want it for all the programs
We
plus
can do
the-
all the programs. We can do medication aid separately. However, the committee would like to go about this.
We can separate them.
Separate them.
Then I would move that we retain the certified medication aid as a critical need program.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say, excuse me, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passed.
All right, Chair Frederick, did you want to look through each college independently, we have 15.
I don't know that we need to necessarily. You can give us at least an overview.
Sure. So if you look, we can go quickly through this. It looks like Alan has a social service designee. There is no related occupation code for that SIP code, meaning when we crosswalk it, there's no clear occupation to line up with that. For that reason, we couldn't map it to high wage, high demand, and they didn't try to argue critical need. With cloud, we have 3 programs that there are no articulation agreements.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chair? I just want to make sure I understand the verbiage. When it says no 2+2 articulation agreement on file, was the institution given an opportunity to sort of rectify that, or are they fully, they don't intend to pursue such things, so?
Right. They were given opportunity. If we vote to take this off, if they do get an articulation agreement at a later date, they're welcome to bring it back and we'll approve it and put it back on the list. But they were given, do you remember when you sent out the email?
We gave them an extra month. We had to give them 30 days notice, and with the articulation agreements, we gave them 60 days basically notice, just unofficially 60 days notice, so that they had a little additional time to try to get it, because as Director Henry said, those are the type of agreements that take a little while longer to get.
Just a quick clarification. What is the time frame of removing them, the programs?
So this gets a little more complicated. Once the TEA would vote on these, they would then go to the board. After the board makes a final decision, we have to give the program 14 months. And then it can be shut off. So really, we're looking at AY 25, so fall of 2025, or fall of 2024, spring 2025 is AY 25.
And I would like to clarify that they will still have the ability to teach out any students who have already enrolled and are part of the program even after that time frame. They just won't be able to enroll new students into it at that stage.
Welcome. Any other questions? Keep going. So Cali, same thing. We have one program that we don't have a 2+2 or an articulation agreement. Flint Hills, this is a rehabilitation aid is really what this is. And there is no occupation code to evaluate. The second part of Flint Hills is during year 1, the college program that they chose was power plant technology. In year 2, they selected distribution and logistics as their field of study. That program doesn't fall under that field of study, so it would no longer be eligible. I know that's confusing. For Heston, there are no articulation agreements, and they have a very similar thing that happened. In year 1, they had professional pilot as a program. In year 2, they did not select a field of study as their 5th field of study. So that would have that program be removed because they no longer have a field of study.
If I may also, just to make sure you understand, the articulation agreements have to be with Kansas universities. Okay, so in some cases, our universities don't even offer some of these programs in Kansas. For instance, we don't have a dental school, so there wouldn't be a way to have an articulation agreement inside the state of Kansas in that particular area, but that's also part of what is the way the statute's written. Okay.
So if we go on to Hutchinson, we had one program that fell into the field of study of business, which isn't stipulated in the legislation, and one program where we don't have a 2+2 or an articulation agreement. Johnson County, under year 1, their program was sign language. In year 2 of the rules, they selected law, public safety, and corrections. Sign language doesn't fall under that, so that program would be removed. KCK, 2 programs where we don't have an articulation or an articulation on file. And in year 1, they selected their additional program as fire science. In year 2, they selected the field of distribution and logistics, which would eliminate fire science. Let's see, Labette, no articulation agreements for 2 programs, and the same thing in year 1, they selected graphic design. In year 2, when the 5 categories were stipulated, graphic design does not fall under any of those fields of study. So they selected law, public safety, corrections, and security. Neosho, several programs with no articulation agreements. North Central, their program isn't related to, there is no related occupation. Pratt, year 1, the program that they selected was automotive technology. In year 2, they selected the agriculture field. Auto tech doesn't fall under agriculture. Salina, very similar, looks like. So this is one of those ones that we got caught up on. So in year 1, we selected that as a program. In year 2, the legislative language says distribution and logistics. Commercial truck driving is transportation. So since it doesn't fall in there, that would have to be removed. And then WSU Tech, 2 programs where we weren't able to evaluate the occupation that a student would obtain after completion.
Okay, any questions, comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, go, please go.
Well, since I'm new, I'm still trying to feel out the dynamics a little bit here, but for example, what you said about Salina,
Mhm.
is there a suggestion beneath the words here that it's a problem that those categories don't align? Is there an effort to try to change the definition?
I believe there was movement to try to get the language changed this year, which would take effect next year. But yes, the original category is transportation, logistics, and distribution. But for whatever reason, the word transportation was left off. It's just distribution and logistics. CDL is transportation.
There was a bill put forward, there was a bill put forward to include transportation back in and also make some other changes to the Promise Act. My understanding is that bill got held up in committees. I don't think it made it out, so I'm not sure those changes for the Promise Act are going to be made this year or not. That's still part of the sausage making, as you referred to, but at this stage, that has not been put forward.
Sure. Again, just trying to explore here. Is there a set of interests that is at play on that particular distinction, or is that just sort of some verbiage that made it through? What you've just described sounds like it doesn't really track with reasonableness to me. So what happened there?
When the, if that's all right, when this bill was first put forward, people got together and the Board of Regents was not really included in the discussions of what was going forward. So we did not get an opportunity to really look at the various categories to that level. And then a revision was made and we had, when they changed into these fields of study, same thing. They were able to put forward changes, but last year, even the proposed bill struggled to get out of committee. And so they were able to get out the changes, but they were not able to, transportation was not included in their listing. And because transportation was not included, it looked like it was specifically left off. And with that left off, then staff follows looking at
Oh, yeah.
the
I
zip
don't mean
codes.
you
going-
weren't
Right.
reasonable. I mean,
right.
the situation.
But I think some of the legislators have gone back now. They realize that CDL is very important. I think there was question whether you know, they wanted the pilot programs included or not. And I think that was one of the questions that was out there as well, because transportation would include the pilot programs as well if you were doing that. So I think that was some of the discussion that went on. But as I said, I think there was an intent to put it back in this year, but for some reason, and I don't know why it did not make it out of committee, so they have not moved it there.
Who else? Go ahead.
Okay, Promise Act, let me get this straight. Promise Act is the high school or tell me which one that one is.
Promise Act is anyone who falls within a certain income range
Okay,
can receive essentially a scholarship into any of these programs. Afterwards, they owe the state 2 years of service in Kansas.
all right, thank you. I'm just getting mixed up. Okay, all right, and so we have a list, we have this wonderful list. And majority of these look like it's being not eligible because they don't have 2+2 articulation agreements.
Mhm.
And that can be, there may not be a 2+2. Back to that promise, anyone that fits within an income range and they promise 2 years of service, they get free
Program. So,
Program.
so take, for example, one of the advanced EMT, I think at Cowley, I think we just approved that. They also applied for that program to be Promise Act eligible, meaning now that program, a student, you could go to Cowley, take that program, get that scholarship. And if you complete it within the time frame, can't remember the time frame. And then you work in Kansas for 2 years after that, you do not owe anything.
And then all three of those conditions have to be met. Is it all three have to be met? The either a 2+2 or, and then the high wage, high demand is one. And it has to have an articulation agreement and it has to have what else?
Yep. So a program has to lead to a high wage, high demand, critical need occupation.
Uh-huh.
If it is a transfer, there's a little extra regulation that says you have to have an articulation or a 2+2
Oh, okay.
on file.
Okay, so that's why we were able to do the CMA as the high wage, high demand
We're calling it critical need.
or critical need. I'm sorry, critical need. And it is obviously. Okay, now when this list went out to the colleges and the institutions,
Mhm.
if it was because of the no 2+2 articulation agreement on file, there's no recourse to argue, yeah, I need it, or yeah, it's important, or yeah, dentistry is not in Kansas.
Right.
There was no recourse other than the fact that there was no 2+2.
Right. And when we sent these lists out, they were much larger. And
Okay.
we actually collected a lot of 2+2 articulation agreements for transfer programs. So
Okay.
these are just the remaining ones.
And then the reason, and so then these either schools chose not to do 2+2s or
They either don't have them or couldn't get them.
couldn't get.
But if they get them at a later date and bring the program
they can
back,
Bring them
we
back.
can add the program back.
Yeah. It just looks, when you look at the list. Anyway, it's interesting. I just find it interesting. And I find some of these high need.
Yeah.
I think the transportation, it's crazy. Yeah, I shouldn't say that, but it doesn't, to me, make sense when we know that we have a critical need for truck drivers.
Right.
So so the transportation. There are some things here, and actually we need a lot of dentists. So there's a lot of things here. It's going to be a hard thing to decide.
April, seems pretty complicated, some hurdles that people have to go through to be able to qualify for one of these programs.
Mhm.
You have any idea how many people are enrolled across the state that are in this program or that have successfully completed a course and now are doing their 2 years?
Have that report.
idea?
I know that we had a report that we,
First year we had, just in the first year without any marketing at all, we had over 700 students that were taking advantage of it. I don't even remember what the numbers were, but they're significantly higher in the second year. So we've had many more students come in, but I apologize. I don't remember the exact number.
It seems like somebody doesn't want to pay for college, so they're putting some more hurdles in there, taking some more programs out or whatever. I mean, that's my gut feeling.
Yeah. Yep, they put extra regulations around certain things. But we're just completing our second year of this, so it's gonna take at least another year to get completions for longer term programs like nurse aid, med aid, those are quicker term programs. So we probably could see some if people are completed and working, but I'm not sure that we have that reporting yet, just from how new it is.
And I would also say, while you're seeing these programs being pulled off the list and you're looking at it saying, it seems like you have to remember there are literally hundreds of programs that are approved that people do qualify for as Promise Act that you've approved before as a TA last year that you approved. So I would remind you that of all the programs that do qualify and all the students. I mean, when you're helping, well over 1,000 students a year with the last dollar scholarship, it's a good thing. And we expect it to be more. Last year, the first year we spent a little under or right around $4 million, I think, is what was given away in scholarship money. I would guess will be significantly higher this year on that. So there is a lot of money going to this program to try to help students.
What is so we should be seeing some people that are hitting the 2-year work service payback. Is that being successfully accomplished or?
Well, I think we're just really getting started on that.
We haven't
but,
gotten
yeah,
to
we
those
haven't
yet.
really got to knowing that, but I would imagine so, because remember, the work that you do or the work that the students are required, we're not saying it even has to necessarily be in their particular field of study. We're just saying you work in Kansas work and live in Kansas for 2 years. So when they're getting the scholarship money, and then this allows them to get the education and still earn a living. So it pays dividends.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Any other comments, Mike?
I don't have a comment. I assume we need a motion to approve the removal of these programs from the.
You are correct.
I'll move to approve. We remove these programs from the Kansas Promise Scholarship list.
Okay, and Dave has a second. Any further discussion? I think it's important that we understand that I think the program is a good program. Clearly, it is still evolving. And unfortunately, common sense doesn't always, rise to the top on some of these new statutes and you often hear the term unintended consequences. Well, that may still be part of the transportation issue that they found themselves and we found ourselves in. So I appreciate the good work. Staff is having to, continue to follow, who's on first for quite a bit. So anyway. Okay, we have a motion, a second, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to turn our attention now to Workforce AID, Tyson Winningham. Welcome, Tyson. Is this your first time to come and be punished? Okay. Right. Push the button there. You got it.
Yes. Here. Okay. Hi, my name is Tyson Winningham. I'm the program manager for Workforce AID program for the Kansas Department of Commerce. It stands for Aligned with Industry Demand. My slides are not all that useful, so I will try to give you as much as I can verbally here. Workforce AID is a program that helps employers deliver and drive short-term customized training programs tailored to fit the specific needs of the business. So the entire process is driven by the employer. It's in partnership with the Kansas Department of Commerce, KBOR, the training provider, and local workforce centers. In 2012, the Department of Commerce established the Workforce AID customized training program to be responsive to businesses' needs. Workforce Aid supports economic and workforce development by keeping Kansas businesses competitive and also promoting a more robust economy. So Workforce Aid starts with demand. Training programs that are built specifically to address the needs of employers identified during the discovery process through collaboration with the employer and the training provider. It's truly customized. It's a 50-50 reimbursement match program. Its incentive can be leveraged for new workers, new hires, or incumbent workers for upskilling. It's a single point of contact. The program manager connects and coordinates collaborative efforts to achieve the program goals across multiple echelons. Sorry, I'm reading from this paper. I know this is not the best way to go about things. Incumbent workers enrolled in training receive an increased living wage. We go with high demand, critical skills needs positions, and increased living wages successfully completed training, which must be at or above the county median per DOL. So during the recruitment process, Workforce AID provides assistance through leveraging Department of Commerce resources and workforce centers. The program can collaborate across industry through employer collaboratives and is open to all industries, making it a very versatile and capable of having a regional impact on high demand training needs. It's demand driven. It's customized. I don't want to just read through but what I'm doing right now is using this program to respond specifically to needs in whether it be a specific business or the region. Most recently, we had a program with Fort Scott Community College that trains CDL drivers. So there we were able to stand up a training program that had gone away in the past and help stand that back up. They're now working with 10 or 12 different employers in the Southeast Kansas region. It's allowing smaller employers in a collaborative fashion to through the school that may not have otherwise had the exposure, the opportunity, or the ability to sort of apply for, or maybe not even known about this program, to apply for the assistance through that school now as a central hub, helping to process take some of the administrative burden and help with the financial piece, processing of the paperwork and everything through the school, so that several smaller businesses in public and private sector in the Southeast Kansas region are able to get someone licensed with a CDL driver's license through this program. So they're able to do the training, the DOT physical and all the prerequisites up front, and then also go through the training program. And this is reimbursed to the employer. Will send someone to the school. The employer pays half, and then the Kansas Department of Commerce reimburses at 50%. So it's a match between the employer and the Department of Commerce that goes back to the training provider. So this is, and I guess I should have switched over the slides here, but this is kind of recent projects listed out. We also have several pending, working with through Peasley Tech with an ESL and basic manufacturing training program of Lawrence with Berry Global. They've trained 80, I think the last report was 80, just over 80 refugees that they've hired there, that they're going through ESL training, basic manufacturing and safety training, so that kind of integrates the workforce. It's a pretty novel thing, really. I think it's a pretty good program. But we're looking at hopefully getting maybe 200 through that the next 12 months, but they're on a pretty good pace. Still going with an industrial maintenance technician program, which I think through Kansas Community College, we're going into our, I think, 4th year of that. And so that's an IMT program in partnership with the businesses listed below there. But the spirit of the program truly is that we're able to respond directly to an employer's need with a short-term customized training program that's driven by demand, and it's driven by the employer. So we facilitate, they lead, the demand drives it, but through the process, the employer is allowed, the employer is essentially in charge, takes the lead on the project. And we do everything that we can to customize it to meet that need in a 6 to 12 week period in order to address kind of that specific need and help that business. And we do have, I don't know if I mentioned county median minimum wage, that they have a raise after they've completed the training program. And they have a contingent employment offer in place before they go through. So back to the CDL drivers, for example, before they are enrolled in the program, of course, the employer makes the investment up front. but they're given a contingent offer of employment prior to entering the program, or they're already employed by that company. And so right now, sort of initiatives, trying to kind of reach out into the rural areas. I sort of mentioned a collaborative approach. And so I guess the major difference from what the program has done in the past is that as opposed to focusing entirely on direct conversations with the employers and the businesses as the origin of these projects, that we're actually looking at regional shortcomings and needs and trying to address I would like to, and I have some efforts in place. I'm not quite there yet, but addressing these issues sort of regionally, like with the CDL drivers, because there's school bus drivers, trash truck drivers, delivery drivers. So the counties, public and private sector are able to get involved, and it's really something it's really bringing back to kind of that whole region and allowing to, respond to a need that was shared across not just industry partners, but every sort of multiple echelons in the region. So going forward, that's sort of my intent with the program is going through a TPM Academy right now, trying to adopt some supply chain principles into the program that allow us to really kind of build a framework, get some more granular data and feedback, and get out ahead of what demand is in the region. So I would like to open the floor for questions.
Okay, any questions, comments?
Just a quick comment. If you think the demand for truck drivers is strong now, please pay attention to what we've been saying here since we know this is out there. Gilmar is planning on adding 9 to 12 dairies that can serve them in Dodge City. And we discussed it, well, anyway, I won't go into all the details, but that's how important this issue is. And that's why it needs to be clearly understood as we speak.
Mike, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just a general comment, and probably of anyone in the room related to CDL driving, Mark can appreciate the need and demand, but really, as Tyson talks about the regional approach or multiple businesses joining in a consortium to meet a need, it still doesn't mean that Hess Manufacturing can't do a project by themselves or whatever that may be. If Keith's needing some technicians and has the ability or framework around a training program, it's very adaptable to a specific need. So as Tyson mentioned, the employer or the business identifies the need, the training, and then works with a training provider, in this case, a community or tech college, to provide that. So very flexible. It's, when Tyson and I talk about this, it's we have guardrails, but let's not narrow that guardrail so much that it makes it impossible, so bureaucratic to get through that it defines things. That we want to be very flexible, not only with the training providers, but more importantly with the business on meeting their needs. So I always tell Tyson, there's nothing that's impossible. We just have to navigate. So.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, anyone else? I'm curious about curriculum. How does that get formed in this Workforce AID program?
As it stands, the intent, I think if we have to build something from scratch, what's wired into the program is that we would come back to the Kansas Board of Regents and ask for assistance kind of building that. But as it stands, I've not been involved in the process of developing the curriculum personally. So the schools have come back to me with that to this point. So
Most instances, Ray, this is, and a lot of things can be customized training that's more on the B&I side of a community or tech colleges, but some things fit right into an already developed course or curriculum or a program that meet the need. The CDL training is a good example of that, of something already being built around that type of training.
Good. I'm just wanting clarification that the business and industry obviously has input in helping create and frame that curriculum.
Yeah, it's theirs.
Okay.
It's not being dictated. It's, Mark wants to create ribbon cutters. It's his idea of what needs to go into that training.
I would even just say from business and industry perspective, and we are just unbelievably short on drivers still. And I know we just voted on, removing a Promise Act eligibility for a CDL program, but I was taking notes as you were presenting here, wanting to get with Greg and say, we would actually pick up the slack where if you've got any individuals, we've got opportunities to offer job positions, work with funding to get the training through for those employees through the Salina Area Technical College course. And then once they graduate with a CDL over the course of the program, we could start them driving immediately in jobs that, are higher than $60,000 a year. So it's a great need, and I'm applaud the program and look forward to working on some program in the near future.
Thank you, sir. I could add, if I could.
Yeah.
I have found that when we started with the nature of the program initially, started with the business. And I don't want to take anything away from that, and we're not stopping doing that. But what I have found sort of by chance or just by, conversation and through Fort Scott Community College and some of the other programs that we're kind of getting started, is that there's an opportunity. It's great, and it's probably best organically to start with the business need. I mean, that you have to start there. But when I have conversations with a school president who already has their hand on the pulse and knows what that need is, and has developed relationships, established relationships in the region with those businesses a lot of times, I can get a lot quicker to the source of the pain points, shared pain points kind of in the region. And so in the end, the goal and the process remains the same. It's employer-led, employer-driven. So the business, the need that we're trying to address is we're here to facilitate that process and do the best that we can to address that need specifically and quickly, right? But I have found that, like I said, with collaborative effort, we can have an equal or even sometimes greater impact that reaches, I think, down to a smaller, more granular level. So smaller businesses in rural areas, opportunities for Kansas and keeping people in Kansas, right? And so that's another effort that I would like to going forward, working with pre-apprenticeship programs and probably some of the younger generations in the state. And as they make that transition from high school into maybe a registered apprenticeship program or something in the state of Kansas to try to keep those kids here when they graduate. So thank you for your time. Sorry.
Any other comments or questions? This is a great program. I mean, I've really been very supportive and from day one. But I also have a great appreciation for you being flexible as you continue to, to move forward with this program and to learn and to be willing to meet the need of business and industry and not just trying to fit them into something that you've created.
Yeah.
Say.
Yes, sir.
So I appreciate the flexibility on your part and being sensitive to the need and the willingness of these business and industry people to, come to the table and put some money over their mouth too, a little bit of that. So anyway, all right. Thank you. Welcome. We're glad glad for the update, and we look forward to additional updates from time to time.
Thank you, Mr.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on. Next item on our agenda is the Governor's Education Council recommendations. So Scott, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Frederick. Over the last few years, there's been a group, a fairly large group of people meeting to come up with recommendations regarding education and tying into business and workforce. And this group completed their report to the governor and submitted this report to the governor earlier. Oh, I guess it was late last year, maybe earlier this year. I guess I'm trying to remember, time flies, so it might have been in a little earlier this year. And they've submitted this report to the governor, and the TEA is mentioned and has been recommended to help with some of the efforts associated with what they're trying to do. And I'm not planning on reading you all the report. It's been provided to you, and you are welcome to read it at your your options. There were four, what I'll say, primary recommendations that were put forward by this, the Governor's Education Committee. The first was improving the alignment of early childhood care and education systems across state agencies. And that's kind of centralizing the resources associated with that, alignment of the resources. And really, other than our colleges and the early childhood programs that they have, the TEA is not so much directly related or involved with the first recommendations that is there. The second program involves increasing opportunities for high school students to earn certifications and credentials that cross-cut all industries. And one of the programs that they mention in that involves NC3 and data analytics. I wanted to let you all know why the TEA is not directly related to that either, and there will be discussions on some of those items. As far as NC3 goes, the Board of Regents office currently has a statewide license with NC3. We pay a set amount each year for NC3, and in return, our institutions to participate with NC3. And some of the programs with NC3 are free, but to be a fully participating member, our institutions now have to pay $1,000 a year versus the $5,000 normal fee, because the board is having that statewide license. And that statewide license is not just for our higher ed institutions. We do have at least one university that participates, as well as some of our two-year colleges. But in addition, our high schools can also participate in that particular area. So, but other than that, once again, I don't see the TEA necessarily being involved in that. I just wanted to let you know that board staff does work with them on that a little bit. The last two recommendations, though, do involve the TEA a little bit. One is leveraging existing resources and structures to facilitate more effective post-secondary transition for Kansas students. Involved with this would be our concurrent classes, which Academic Affairs is involved with, along with our colleges. And as you know, there's been an effort to standardize some of the gen ed classes that are going on that are accepted across the board, and some of the other efforts that they have. But in addition, we obviously have Excel in CTE, which you all support. And we've also been looking at the work with ways, you know, for institutions to reduce their Excel and CTE fees. And then the part of that recommendation is that if it's approved by the governor and they decide to move forward with it, the TEA has been asked to have somebody participate on the Diploma Plus Kansas Oversight Panel. And that's just to kind of try to make sure that everybody's represented on figuring out how to streamline that. So there would be a TEA member that would possibly be assigned to that panel if this recommendation moves forward. And then the last one is probably the biggest one that involves the TEA. And that's where they have charged the TEA or want to charge the TEA with the idea to enhance the coordination of technical education pathways between K through 12 and post-secondary education. And I'm going to, and I probably have lost where I was going with this, but I wanted to mention this to you, that if you remember, we have a goal that we created last year, and the goal was to improve CTE program alignment between KSDE and the post-secondary institutions based on business and industry input. Included in this effort will be establishing and publishing best practices that increase the number of students that earn industry certifications and/or post-secondary credentials. So with that being one of our goals that the TEA had created, you also then, as you'll see, this report suggests that we enhance communications between the students, improve our work with K through 12, making sure the business sector understands, coming up with a best practices document on how the business advisory committees work. So there is a lot of overlap between what this committee has recommended and what one of our goals is. There's also a K through 12 committee called KACCTE that is also recommending the same thing. That's the Kansas Center for CTE Committee. So it seems like there is a lot of discussion and everybody's agreeing that we need to figure out how to try to smooth that transition between secondary and post-secondary and make it even better than it currently is. And so once again, if this goal moves forward, or if this, recommendation moves forward, then obviously the TA would be more involved. But I just wanted to touch on that very quickly with you all, kind of make you aware that these recommendations have gone forward. And we don't necessarily need to act on anything at this particular time, but wanted to be ready to stand for questions. I know there are a couple people in here who participated in that committee as well, the Governor's Education Committee, and also obviously, for instance, in our case, Blake Flanders, President Flanders was part of those discussions as well. So the feeling is that the TEA already exists. It has somebody from labor, it has somebody from commerce, it has somebody from KSDE, it has business. So it has a good mixture that would hopefully help with these efforts. So with that, I will stand for questions.
Okay, any questions, comments?
I have an observation. It's kind of interesting that SB 48 was wanting to remove, if I'm correct, and I may be off, was wanting to remove the our KSDE rep to a non-voting member. And yet the Governor's Council here, one of the big, what we were trying to do and what we think is important, we set as a goal, that to improve that the pipeline and the work relationship with KSD with the secondary and post-secondary. Anyway, I just found that an interesting conflict in the between the two between the council's recommendations and that SB 48. Now, and I understand that is in whatever limbo it is in. So, but it was just interesting. Whoever came up with that idea, then I assume they weren't on the committee to do this because, and anyway, it didn't align well, if I'm understanding it all correctly.
Don't bet on it. That they weren't on the committee.
Ray, and just thinking out loud, would there be value to have a written update each TA meeting on progress to these 4 items so that we can keep a pulse? K-Board staff isn't too close to me right now, but just so we can keep a pulse on progress for these 4 items.
I think so. We'll see if the governor, endorses this.
Yeah.
I think it's in her court right now.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of which, you could flip a coin there, but I think there's probably 2 or 3 of these bullets that are just valuable regardless of her endorsement or not. The alignment of career pathways is obviously important, not only to the higher ed, but also the CTE programs in the high schools.
No, clearly it's important. And I think that, Scott's commented that actually, this last recommendation of the pathways for K-12 and post-secondary, I mean, that's part of our goal anyway. So it's an issue that we recognize. It's certainly one that needs more work. But yes, we would clearly have the support and I think the effort on our part to work more closely with,
Yes.
well,
And just to reiterate, I think Mike perhaps was just a few minutes late because he was speaking on a pilot that we started in 1920. And the Governor's Education Council recommended a work-based learning pilot initiative that we started in 1920, and the Board of Regents was part of that. Scott was a partner in that. And reflecting on visiting Colby and some of the things that we were doing, we, of course, involve commerce, we involve labor and the Board of Regents. But at that time, our pilot schools, we ended with, I happen to have a little recap. So in 1920, the Governor's Education Council recommended that work-based learning in Kansas should be a comprehensive approach that ensured Kansas students had equitable access to high-quality work-based learning experiences designed to prepare each student for post-secondary and workforce success. So it was a cross-state regional pilot. It served as a model to scale high-quality work-based learning across Kansas and develop a statewide system alignment. So work-based learning, a strategy for both preparing students for college and the workforce, participating in those real-life work experiences. So it kicked off in January of 2020 with 6 districts taking part in 5 workforce regions, bringing representatives together from education, business, industry, economic development within the 5 workforce regions. Phase 2 was in 2020. We added 13 additional districts. Phase 3 was in fall of 2021. 25 districts participated. So the work has rolled now into the Kansas Association of Workforce Boards Learning Initiative Project, and it's a funded initiative as endorsed by the governor. So it was also presented at the Kansas Chamber to businesses. So thinking about that, aligning with this work also in preparing, and the partnership that we had from community and technical colleges during all 3 phases of the pilot. Scott Smathers, he would connect our community colleges and technical colleges with those districts. And we asked that educator externships and professional development be provided to those districts who wanted to participate. We asked that middle school career awareness and exploration opportunities be provided on campus, and those high school career exploration opportunities on campus. So I think maybe perhaps those could be further expanded, thinking about some of the things that were going on that I got to see yesterday at Colby and Monday with the teachers. As far as the initiatives they're rolling out, like the Kansas Promise Scholars Act, to make educators and students and parents more aware, would be helpful.
Just a point of clarification. You said 1920?
Yes, January. We call it the 1920 school year.
Oh, okay.
Well, in school year terms.
Yeah.
That old.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, my land.
I know you were thinking it.
Yeah.
Well, it was about the time COVID hit, wasn't it, Mike? We had this idea.
Okay.
And have you had a pilot transfer into a funded initiative? How many of those throughout the years?
Not many pilots transition to a fully funded program, but to clarify, it was 2019, 2020 school year that was launched. So good progress in a short time.
Mhm. So perhaps we can revisit some of those initiatives. I know we've been in conversation. April Henry is someone I reach out to quite a bit. We talked about, we review our pathways every 5 years, and talking about how often or when your programs are reviewed more as needed is what I understand. So.
Well, appreciate that information very much. And I think it's a good example of why it's important to have someone from your area at the table and a part of this team.
And maybe Mike too.
Well,
As Ray says, I'm the good cop.
we will be revising our dress code from next as we go forward.
I like the Harley.
Yeah. All right, any other comments, questions? I think this is for information only. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, at this time, until the governor officially moves forward, but as it is also, as you mentioned, we're going to talk about TEA goals in a little bit. As it is a TEA goal, we will at least be working on this more going forward as well.
Okay, we're going to move on to the appropriations request reminder.
Okay, this is something, and it's both for the colleges that hopefully they'll also work with you all and participate in this. Annually, the Board of Regents is responsible for putting together a unified budget request for the post-secondary system. They asked the 2 years colleges to provide them information. They asked the TA and even KBOR staff to come up with a list of potential items to be included. Last year, the TEA put a request to the board that included obviously implementing the tiered and non-tiered funding. That the board then submits that to the legislature for funding, to fully fund the Excel and CTE program, to continue the capital outlay, and which was at 7.4 million, and then to provide an additional 500,000 to each institution for IT, networking, cybersecurity type purposes. We don't know what's going to come out of it. Some of these items have made it through on one side or the other. The Senate maybe has done some, the House has done some. Many of them are holding off until they determine what happens with the new tax bill. And we have experts in here who could tell you more about that if you wanted to hear more, but until they kind of see also the latest budget projections for the upcoming year and how all that ties together, we don't know which one of these items or if any or all of these items will go through. We do believe that the funding to the formula, the tiered and non-tiered, and fully funding Excel and CTE will be achievable for sure. But last I saw, the capital outlay had been dropped down some, and I think they had cut the IT, networking, security, some of them had cut it in half, I believe, was what was being proposed at least at one side of or the other. Having said all that, because our last meeting is May, the board discusses this at their July retreat, we need to come up with a list of items that we would recommend for the two-year colleges and for as a system for post-secondary for CTE. What would we recommend the funding be? And what we suggest that the Board of Regents recommend. And so we will have to do that by our May meeting. So if you have ideas, or if the colleges have ideas that they would like to put forward for the TEA to consider in our ask, it's from what I've seen, it seems like if we get multiple entities asking for the same thing, it carries more weight than if we just have one entity asking here or one entity asking there. So if you have any ideas, or if a college approaches you, or you're talking to some of the colleges and you say, what is it that you all would like to see going forward? We will probably start these discussions hopefully next month, but by May, we will have to have a vote on what the TEA is recommending going forward as far as the ask. And by May, we'll also know what of these have been funded and what of these possibly have not.
Any questions, comments?
Quick comment. Senate Bill 127 established capital outlay 100 years ago with then Governor Robert Bennett. And it's been through all kinds of fun and games and all kinds of issues. I'll leave it at that. Okay. But that it needs to be looked at, that's for sure, to be fair. Thank you.
So Scott, should any recommendations, should they come to you? Be sent to you?
Absolutely. If you have some, if you get them and you want to provide them to us, that way we can put together kind of a master list or the paper would be glad to do that. Obviously, as I said, from the two-year sector, if you have ideas that you would like for us to include, we'd welcome those as well, because then I know your sector would obviously be bringing them forward, but maybe the TEA also will be doing the same thing. And it's kind of one of those things. I believe the more the merrier from what I've seen as far as the recommendations for additional funding. Doesn't mean that there won't be things that you may still have in addition to, what the TEA decides to go for, but at least, as I say, if the TEA is doing it and you're doing it, then that's more than one that's trying to do it.
Okay, any thoughts, comments? All right, thank you. Okay, next item, we're going to talk about the calendar for next session, next year.
Next year, we're already talking about it. So how we set the TEA schedule is we basically base it off of the board schedule. So in your issue paper, you have the board schedule for next year. what we try to do is back it up so that anything that we should have that would have to go through a board committee and then the board could do that based on our schedule. So the board meeting 2 weeks before is their committee, 2 weeks before is the TEA, 2 weeks before is our committee. It's really how we schedule things out. And we do that so that everything that we approve, if it needs to go through those, they can get proper approvals so we can get things moving. So if you look at our tentative schedule, which is kind of an accompanying page in your issue paper, you'll notice a couple things. In November and December, to accommodate both the board meeting at the same time that we normally would and the holiday season, we have moved 2 of those to Fridays. So if you look, the 17th and December 22nd would be Fridays. Obviously, those are up against holidays, sometimes not the best weather in Kansas. So it's up to you guys to decide if you want to maintain both of those, if you want both of those to be virtual to better accommodate that time of year. That's completely your decision. The other thing that we need to look at is the January meeting. Typically, that is at the Workforce Summit. And right now, we are not sure if the Workforce Summit is going to go. So we have a tentative date of January 25th. If the summit does go, we'll alter that date and be at the summit.
Okay.
What are you thinking?
No, you're good.
So with that, I would stand for any questions.
So, Chairman, do we need a motion to approve our calendar then, or?
We will. There are a couple dates, though, that I also want to make sure that you all are aware of, because you may want to think about it a little. Number one is that we have a meeting face-to-face on Friday, the week before Thanksgiving. On Friday, that's a face-to-face meeting. I'm not sure if you all want to have that or whether you want us to go back and rethink that. The other is the Friday before Christmas, which is on a Monday. We have a virtual meeting. And do you want us to go back and rethink that date? Those 2 dates can be a little bit of a challenge, especially the Friday before, with Christmas being on a Monday. If you want to have a virtual meeting on that Friday, we can make that work. We just, a lot of people may be thinking about traveling to go visit family or whatever. And so I didn't know if you wanted a little time to look at your calendars and come back, or if you wanted us to go back and rethink things, we could do things Thursday afternoon. Instead of holding the December meeting, maybe you just authorize the Program and Curriculum Committee authority to move it forward direct to the board with reporting back to the full TEA. I mean, there are a lot of different options that are out there, but I wanted to at least raise those 2 particular dates with you all before you just approve them, because they're tight to the holidays.
I would like us to relook at that for those 2 dates, the November and the December. I think that's worth further discussion.
Do you have a preference for doing a meeting Thursday afternoons over that? Or would you have a preference for us moving and maybe authorizing the program committee to approve things to go direct to the board for approval? And then maybe we have one meeting in early December. I mean, I guess there's a lot of different ways we can look at this. What I'm trying to figure out is, do you have a preference for what you would like for us to reconsider?
Not opposed to Thursday afternoon and make both events virtual.
Okay, well, we will put together a revised calendar for your approval at our next meeting, if that's all right with you all, kind of with that concept. And if things change and you have other ideas, please let us know. And we can obviously look at that as well.
Just a quick comment. I mean, it kind of breezed by here real quick, but the summit was around for 20 some years. Call it different things through all that time. When I was across the street not too long ago, they asked me specifically what happened to it. And I tried to explain, of course, COVID did a number on us, but we've had all kinds of other things happen that I'm extremely concerned about, and have been for quite some time. The whole point of the matter is we're looking at all that right now. As you know, as most of you that are with us during that, we ended up with 8 states involved in it. And then all of a sudden, well, anyway, enough said. To me, it was bringing people together from other states that really helped all of us grow, all this region. And some of the spread that came out of that were these other states are now starting to have some of these programs that, Mr. Chairman, that this group right here really was involved in. So there, I think it's very, what I might suggest is that we, Mr. Chair, we might suggest that we have a group within this group that could sit down and discuss this and look at that. Okay? Good. Thanks, April, because I appreciate you bringing that up and everything that's involved there. Thank you very much to all of you that supported it for a long time. Appreciate you all very, very much.
So point of clarification, you're going to send us a revised meeting dates, is that right?
What I have heard from the TA members, unless I misunderstood, is you would like for us to come back, consider Thursday afternoon dates, making both meetings virtual. If you decide you want one of the other meetings then to be face-to-face, for instance, if you want to then make the April-May meetings face-to-face, we could do that. So if you will let me know if you have any other thoughts, we will put together a revised schedule and bring it to you at our next TA meeting for the TA to vote on. But if you have any other things, for instance, this would give us, I think, 6 virtual and 4 face-to-face. But if you have another face-to-face you'd like to have in there, let us know which one you'd like to have, and we could look at making that change as well. Maybe you want August and September as an example, the first couple meetings being face-to-face of the new year. I don't know. I'm just throwing those out as options for you to consider. Okay.
We seem to have a lot in the April, May that we talk as a group. With our goals and then the budgets and some of those. So that's a possibility for sure. And then I think do we consider an option if the workforce, the Midwest workforce, and I forget the last name, but it has done good work. I've been to it the last many years and it's evolved and they have good. So I've always thought it was nice to have our meeting in conjunction with that event. I thought that was a positive, especially for those of us traveling from out of town that do attend the conference. That's a positive. So April mentioned leaving that or having that as that optional date. That I thought that was a good idea too.
Okay. So if anybody has any other ideas, please let us know. And we will try to factor that in for what we're doing.
And just my own personal opinion, I think we have better and more robust discussion face-to-face. So I hate for us to wander too far from the number of face-to-face meetings. Not to, put any burden or added burdens on anyone, but I just think that the discussion is again robust if we're here together. We lose something, in my opinion, by not being in the same room. And I understand the convenience and of the certainly the Zoom meetings. But I hope we don't fall into a trap. That's just my personal opinion of convenience is more important than substance. So we'll see. So anyway, okay, we'll have an opportunity to weigh in on that. Next item is a reminder about elections.
Sir, this is a quick one. This is just a reminder that annually the TEA elects a chair and vice chair. The elections are held in May. If anybody has an interest in serving as either chair or vice chair, please let either Chair Frederick or myself know, and we will make sure and get that out front. So with that, I will stand for questions.
All right. Review of TA goals.
All right.
2023.
Yes, sir. As you know, last year in September, we started we put together our TA goals. You all approved the goals as you saw. Supporting the Board of Regents goals. Obviously, we've assisted academic affairs in a lot of what they've been doing, but in addition, we've been working on the talent pipeline goal number 5, especially related to healthcare. So staff, workforce development staff has been involved in that and working on that. Goal number 2, the finishing the extraordinary cost review. As once again, many of you were around, a couple of you I don't believe were. That in November, that was put on hold by the TEA. Our intent is to meet with the 2-year college leadership teams to discuss how the formula is working, the processes and everything related to that. This is supposed to be taken up again by the TEA starting the next academic year, which would be really at your first meeting in August, because the academic year starts in July, but we don't meet till August. But in the meantime, we are meeting with the 2-year college representatives to discuss this in more detail. And we'll see where that takes us and see what changes, if any, need to be made to our process and what we're doing and in general, the formula. Item number 3 is reviewing the cost model to give you all a better understanding of how it works. I think many of you enjoyed the conversation with Elaine last month, and that was done. I say that kind of laughing because I know there was an awful lot thrown on you last month. And I would say that if you want to have additional discussions regarding the cost model, let me know. We are happy to put that on the agenda to have those discussions with you. But we did review that to hopefully give you a little better idea of how it works. Albeit I realize it is quite challenging to really get a complete grasp of it. Number 4, working with Commerce and KSDE to develop definitions and guidelines. And that we really tied in a lot of ways with goal number 6, where we also worked with Commerce to expand the apprenticeship model. If you remember a few months ago, Director Henry kind of led the efforts with their crew and others to kind of streamline and make consistent the approach we're taking with apprenticeships. So that was done, and I think we're in a lot better shape than we were before that was undertaken this year. So that was done. Goal number 5 was improving the CTE program alignment between KSD and post-secondary. Just being very direct, there wasn't much progress made on that goal this particular year. And not trying to make excuses or anything. There's been a lot of changeover. As you know, Member Clark and many of her team members are new or coming back to KSD for lack of a better way of putting it. I would expect, assuming this goal continues to stay on our radar, that a lot more progress will be made this coming year than was made this past year. So now that it's kind of fresh, as you may or may not remember, last summer, KSD had a changeover in the position, and then Member Clark joined in January. So there's been limited time, and while Natalie has done a tremendous job, there's been a lot of things she's trying to handle all at one time. So we'll get back and get after that, I think, and start plugging on that. Under item number 7, we just did goal item number 7. That was the Promise Act adjustments. and what you just did. So goal number 7 was just done. Timing's perfect. And we'll go from there. Goal number 8, you did, I believe it was last month or the month before, on the Excel and CTE reviews, and you've done that. Goal number 9, we made a few minor things going forward as far as improving communication. We did put, for any institutions that had an interest, we put their online CTE programs. We have that on our website. I will tell you that at this time, and we thought it would be this year, but things have gotten away from us this year a little bit. We are hoping to launch a new website next year that will be a little more focused towards students and their parents. And with that, I think you'll see us doing a little more in regards to that effort and what we're trying to do there. And then goal number 10, in my last discussions with the community and tech college leadership presidents, they said that they are still working to try to come up with the best way to actually, and how they want this information, to provide this information to us and what they want to provide. So they are still, the 2-year sector is still trying to determine how they want to proceed with this. And once they do, then we will try to move forward with it. So we're really waiting on them on that particular goal, and not trying to, they've had a lot on their plates too. So that's kind of where they're at on those goals. So I did want to go through your goals for you. As you heard, there is one goal that for sure we need to work on a lot more, but most of the others we have made pretty good progress on for this past year.
Any thoughts, comments, questions? Yes, Natalie.
Yes, Scott, and I know Mike are representatives on our advisory council at KSDE. So I'm thinking, Scott, that might be an opportunity to also bring forth some of the items that were covered here. We're meeting in April. We sent out in Wichita. We're going to meet at USD 259 central offices. Kelly Billfield has asked that we all come and visit the Future Ready Center and see the partnership between 259 and WSU Tech. So also been in collaboration with several school districts and businesses thinking about automation and some of the aligned pathways at the post-secondary level. So perhaps we can talk further, and be a great way to start. We have a new chair and some new thinking moving forward.
And perhaps all the TA members could get the invitation to that event.
I bet he would be delighted.
Okay, I think that would certainly, for anyone that could attend, be worthwhile. So Scott, what do we need to do at this point with goals?
I don't think there's anything, unless you have concerns about any of them or have questions regarding any of them. There's nothing really, I don't think, for the TA members to do, unless there's something that you see that you feel you need to step up and address.
To clarify that. Okay. Yes.
I apologize. One other thing, I just wanted you all to see, one of the reasons why we thought the Governor's Education Council recommendations were so, you all received a copy of a chart. Next month, we will be having Elaine present in the enrollment information to you all. Vice President Frisbee will be presenting that to the TA, or we have her on the agenda right now to do. But I thought you would want to see the Kansas college going rates. When you look at K through 12, back in 2016, we had 68.2% of the students going on to getting some post-secondary education. As of 2021, we were down to 58.5% of the students going on and getting that. So we also know that in a few years, we're going to probably have fewer high school students graduating just because of the demographics that are going on. So we have to, for our workforce, turn this around. And that's where we're hoping that maybe working at an earlier and more developing a more seamless approach for people and students to get a better feel for it. they'll have a better idea of how maybe we can move more students into the pipeline. The last thing I forgot to mention in my initial report is there's going to be a virtual health care kind of introductory session going on. That's going to be in April, and it's open to everyone to kind of get a feel for, well, here's this program, this program, this program. It's in April, and we can send you all an invitation to it if you would like to see what is going on there. But we wanted to let the colleges know as well, if you're not aware, that this virtual healthcare, it's kind of and Natalie, you know more about this than I do, but it's more of a introductory session to let students know about what fields are out there.
It's a collaborative between Kansas Chamber and the Kansas Hospital Association, if I remember correctly. I could send you the flyer, yes, but I'm talking about all the different occupations in the healthcare field. So it's a statewide day, an opportunity for students.
Okay, just to, oh,
I'm
Mike,
thinking about Elaine's update on enrollment next meeting. Can we also look at trends with Excel and CTE and Kansas Promise Scholarship enrollments for the previous 2 years?
Yes, sir.
And could I, on that same idea with this, I was just gonna mention, do we have a number at the beginning with that, the actual number? And then at the, so like the first line, 54.1%, and have in parentheses 10,000 or however many students it is. I know it's more than that, but I'm just saying, and then one at the end. I mean, we can calculate if we just have one or either of those numbers, but I think it's for the percents are interesting. I get really depressed with the actual numbers. So, I mean, I just find it helpful to realize where we're at and how that then translates to workforce, to people, to it just the actual numbers, if that's possible.
I will ask.
all right, again, a quick reminder of our next meeting, Thursday, April 27th. And that will be a conference call Zoom meeting on the 27th of April. Once again, thank you for your good effort and the time today, and we are adjourned.